All right, welcome back to the Pineapple Couch, a little WandaVision recap, the weekly thing Peter and I are doing. So, spoiler alert, if you're not caught up with WandaVision, we're going to be talking some big spoilers. So, let me introduce the man of the hour, Peter Gonzalez, my good friend. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about this new episode.
This show just does not stop. It just doesn't stop. It is a spectacle for sure. So let's get right into it. Spoiler alert again. This is your final warning. It was Agatha all along, Peter.
I think that's one of the coolest ways to reveal it. It was so well done.
It was incredible. It was incredible. So Catherine Hahn's character Agnes is what we had known her as up until this point, but as many people theorized, she actually was Agatha Harkness, who is a witch that is hundreds of years old. I actually think probably what's going on is did you watch Thrones, Peter?
Watch what?
Game of Thrones?
Off and on.
Okay, so there's this character in Game of Thrones called Melisandre. She's like the Red Woman. Okay. And basically she's hundreds of years old, but she has this like necklace basically that makes her look permanently young. And so at the end, she takes it off and she's like the super old woman. I think that's probably what's going on with Catherine Hahn here. I think she's like literally from like the 1600s or something. Don't you?
Yeah, I mean, to go along with that, she does have that pin that's been either the necklace or the pin throughout the episodes leading up to this. And I think it was the episode where Wanda gives birth. She's wearing like pointy old like pilgrim style shoes also.
And she was also a witch for Halloween a couple episodes ago. And so let's go before we'll get more into Agatha, but let's just do a little quick recap of the episode here. So this episode based on Modern Family and The Office, I would say basically 95% based on Modern Family, and then just the theme song was like The Office, if that makes sense. That's how I kind of took it. But I guess the talking to the camera is similar to The Office. It's going to start with Wanda is like doing a forced stay at home. Like she's basically grounding herself for what she did at the end of last week's episode by making the Hex and Bubble go giant. And she does, Peter, acknowledge that this is a fake reality she has expanded. And I think that's the first time we've heard that, correct?
I think so. I think, yeah. And then especially the conversation she has with the twins after her self-imposed quarantine, where she's like, I don't really know what's going on in either. Like, I don't have the answers for you.
Yeah, and the twins are just kind of like, what the hell's going on? And so when Wanda is just kind of at her peak of tiredness, just needs a break, of course, none other than Agnes shows up, ready to help out, and she takes the kids away, which immediate bad sign. All the viewers are like, oh no, don't do that. And Wanda does do it. And so Catherine Hahn, Agnes takes the kids to her house, and we'll catch up back on that later. We also, though, in this episode, Peter, at the end of last episode, Darcy was sucked into the bubble, right? Yep. Vision and Darcy, we're going to get a cool kind of like buddy cop, for lack of a better word, interaction between the two of them. Vision like unlocks her mind, and basically what I thought was cool, Peter, Darcy tells Vision like about his life because he doesn't remember anything. It starts like she mentions Jarvis, she mentions Ultron, she talks about the events of Avengers Infinity War, and really like here's a question for you. I knew that Vision didn't have like a lot of his memories, but I didn't know it was to this extent. Like he has no idea who he is at all. Isn't that what you got?
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like I think what kind of clued me into the fact that he didn't really know what was going on was in the Halloween episode when he's like, what are the Avengers? Like he had no idea about the Avengers.
Good point.
I mean, he understands that he has powers and whatnot, but again, I think when Darcy tells him, it really does bring to light that he to himself did not know how much he didn't know.
Yeah, perfectly said. How'd you like the dynamic between Darcy and Vision? I actually really thought that was a funny pairing of those two.
I really enjoyed it because I felt like it really allowed the viewer's perspective to kind of bleed into WandaVision, because she told him she's been watching it for a week. And so she kind of had that. And she has such a sarcastic humor, which I think really helps balance out the show.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the one of the I think the most important takeaway though of their conversations is basically Vision asks like to the extent like, am I alive? Am I gonna get out of this? What's going on in this whole bubble? And she says she doesn't really know, but she sees that Vision and Wanda and Vision's love is real because she's been watching WandaVision, which I think that kind of was like a light bulb in Vision's head, because what we see, Peter, is he basically from that point he's like, why am I driving in this truck when I could fly and just go to Wanda? Because Darcy and Vision were on their way to Westview, on their way to Wanda, and of course every single like it was like the Truman Show-esque type, just like there's a construction project in front of them, there's a bunch of school kids walking by, and eventually Vision essentially says, F it, I'm just going to go. And he does. So that's that part. Let's talk about Monica Rambeau, Peter. Peter, we were so ready to see John Krasinski, Mr. Fantastic. I was so freaking ready. And it turns out it was not. It was a major in sword or in the army somewhere. And so they get the vehicle. Monica gets the vehicle to try to go in the Hex. And I will say this. I still think that the person who designed this vehicle, we have not met. And I think those were all Skrulls.
Yes, I like that theory. I definitely thought about that because I watched the episode twice. Because you have to watch it multiple times to really get everything. Because what stood out to me was about how she said someone who was loyal. And it just reminded me of, the fact that the Skrulls were in Spider-Man and Far From Home. Skrulls were Nick Fury. And it just all kind of lines up. Especially she never really calls this person either who we were expecting. It's just this, person that brought them the vehicle. So I definitely think I'm holding out hope that we're still going to get some sort of reveal.
I think I'm led to believe because I think you bring up a good point. And there's going to be this dynamic that I think set up for the end of this show, essentially, of this group of military or sword agents that Monica just met with. I think they are all Skrulls. And like you mentioned, that means very closely aligned with Nick Fury, who we trust. Correct. On the other hand, there seems to be this division of sword that is led by Hayward, who he's just Captain D-bag. So I think there's a dynamic in between the fractions of sword. Does that make sense?
No, I totally get that. I mean, I think it definitely was foreshadowed with in S.H.I.E.L.D. getting the Hydra infiltration. I feel like there's going to be that you can never fully trust that it's just one entity that splits within it.
Mm-hmm. And so just to cap on that, we'll get into theory. I do think, though, that we're getting Mr. Fantastic in the show. I'm almost more convinced of it now. I think they're like if it was truly no one, we would have, or not that big of a deal, we would have seen it last episode. And I don't think that they like Monica Rambeau, the actress, said you guys, like she tweeted basically, you guys are gonna lose your minds when you see who the mystery person is. There's no way that that's who that was. And I think it's Mr. Fantastic. I think he's probably a sword member who maybe doesn't even have his powers yet. I don't know. But wouldn't it make sense that if Reed Richards is in sword, he might be aligned with Skrulls because he's that smart and he's naturally good. So maybe he's in on the secret. I don't know. I think that reveal, there's some big reveal that's going to happen. And I still think it's Mr. Fantastic. What do you think?
I'm right there with you. I really feel like, especially because we know it's world building, this show helps to build out the world. It's not like a movie, so to speak, where it's just, this is what's happening. I think it definitely has to continue to build out the world. And I definitely don't think, because I feel like it's almost certain we're going to get Doctor Strange somewhere down the line these next episodes. But he's not the one that's going to make people lose their minds. Because if he comes out, it's super cool, but it's not something that we don't see coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's get to Monica now. So she tries to go in with the, I don't know, advanced space car, basically, and like goes full speed into this bubble and is met with a lot of resistance. Like things are not going well. It looks like it's going to explode. The Hex is like stopping it. And basically, Monica bails. The car is thrown out, and half the car is like an old truck now. and the half the car is what the space thing is. And so another failed attempt to get into the hex, and then Monica basically she says like, I've been in there before. And she just, I mean, credit to her. It takes some serious guts to do that. She just sprints into the hex and she goes through it's like what, a giant force field, I guess, and she relives all these moments from her life, a lot of the stuff from the Captain Marvel movie. And basically what happens is as she breaks through this barrier with all like the lights and Spectrum-esque, all of her past selves seem to join together, and she is launched into the bubble, and she lands like a superhero with that like signature superhero like land. I don't know. And then her eyes are like blue. And so this is she's either gonna be Photon or Spectrum. We have a new superhero on our hands, folks. Wouldn't you agree? Like,
yeah, I think that was one of the coolest superhero births that we've seen thus far. And what was really cool that kind of also bled into the show was that once she starts running into Westview, the aspect ratio of the show changed. I don't know if you noticed this or not.
no,
but
what?
So if you're watching the show, and I have to go back and watch the other episodes now to think about this, but so when she's trying to get in and everything, like they're outside in the real world, it's very like the cinematic, the very thick bars on the top. But as she starts to run into Westview, the screen expands into the television fake world as she's crossing in, which I thought was really interesting and a super cool way of kind of bleeding it all in.
Yeah. And so she can basically like, I saw The Matrix a long time ago, but it's basically like the way she can like see rate or like wave, like what energy, is it? What is she like? Yeah, like she sees energy waves and kind of like The Matrix, but and so she, like you said, she runs in and she's going straight to Wanda. She's going straight to Wanda. She runs into Wanda's house, and obviously Wanda's like, what the hell are you doing here? She brings up Vision again, blah, 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 blah. They start to fight, kind of.
Another superhero landing.
Yeah, another superhero landing. Wanda is clearly like stunned that Monica can hold her own. That the look on her face, she's like, what is clearly a moment of like, oh shit. And of course, when it seems like finally Monica is breaking through to Wanda, and they are maybe sharing, because they're both going through something very dramatic. They're both gone for 5 years, and the person they love the most in the world is gone. So right when it seems like we're getting that breakthrough, Peter, Agnes, of course, shows up and basically tells Monica, get out of here. And as soon as Agnes gets there, Wanda immediately turns hostile to Monica, just like that, even though she was just being nice. So you got to wonder what's going on there. And so now we're getting into the big stuff here. Wanda goes to Agnes's house, and she's like, she walks in, she sees like Yo Gabba Gabba's on the TV, and there's some like half-eaten peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or something. And she asks Agnes, like, where are the kids? And she goes, they're probably playing in the basement or something. Which, just an alarming thing to hear from the person who's taking care of your kids, obviously. And so Wanda goes down to the basement, and it is what every kid in the world, when they're like young and they think how scary like dark basements and that sort of thing is, that is what this basement is. It is creepy with like vines and like big stone walls and stuff. And so Wanda goes further and further in, and she gets to this room where it's clearly some shit's going on. There's like purple vines, there's all these like animal skulls, there's red lights, and then there's this book we see, which we'll get to in a second, which I think is the Darkhold, which we'll talk about what that is in a second. But and then the big reveal happens. Agnes walks in, closes the door with magic, and says, you didn't think you were the only like super-powered woman in this town? What was it? Like woman with magic? I don't think it was witch. It was something like magic user, something like that. Something like that. And she reveals that she is Agatha Harkness, and immediately you see her start to like mind control Wanda,
Very Age of Ultron callback.
Very, very Age of Ultron. And that is boom, the credits hit, and Peter, we get a mid-credits like scene for the first time in this show, which is obviously a staple of Marvel movies. Cool to see that coming forward in this. And basically, Monica Rambeau is looking at Agnes's house, like, because she's suspicious and trying to get in. She opens like this side door thing to the basement, and she sees the purple vines and stuff. And then guess who shows up behind her? It's Evan Peters, Quicksilver, whoever he may be, says Snooper's gonna snoop, and the episode is over. So much to get here. So much to get to here, Peter. You mentioned this earlier about how the reveal of Agatha is one of the coolest things you've seen, because I didn't mention this for a reason. When she reveals who she is, there's like a whole song that goes along to it. So talk about like what you liked about that a little.
So, okay, the song has actually been stuck in my head for a couple of days because
same.
it's just so well done. But just when the song plays and you get this very the Munsters type of credits where it's creepy but yet kind of funky, and it just kind of replays the past episodes from beginning to where we are now, and you see these different places where she's been instrumental in doing things. So when I've been listening to it offhandedly, something kind of sparked where I thought about it. The whole thing has been like, the whole theme song is it's been Agatha all along. And it's like sung from a male vocalist is the one singing the theme song, which could be nothing, But if we're going with the whole Mephisto type vibe, which the fly that showed up in her house, comic books, callback right there. What if, because in the comics, to my knowledge, if I can remember correctly, Agatha wasn't necessarily a big bad.
She wasn't.
Who mentored Wanda.
Yeah, a quick little. Agatha Harkness was introduced initially as a babysitter to Franklin Richards, who is Mr. Fantastic and Mrs. Fantastic's kid, and then becomes a mentor to Wanda. And then basically Wanda eventually turns on her because Agatha like created kids for Wanda from the shards of Mephisto's soul. That's my nerd section, but keep going.
So thank you for that wonderful information, which totally ties into this, because what if Agatha, I mean, she might have her own agenda at the same time, but what if it's that Agatha's been messing up Mephisto's plan throughout the whole thing? So that's what she's been messing up, as opposed to being the one that created everything. So in a sense, she's working with Wanda to kind of keep things going. And so she bought Evan Peters Quicksilver into this universe to help Wanda, as opposed to necessarily she's not the villain. I feel like, knowing Marvel, she very well could potentially not be the villain. You know, similar to an Iron Man, I think it's 3? The 3 or 2, where it's the fake out of the villain. 3, and it's totally a fake out. So I feel like that could be where this is going. If the theme song is any kind of clue to where, because I mean, it's like, because if she's messing everything up, is she messing up Wanda's creation, or is she messing up the big bad's creation to get to Wanda?
That's a great point. Never thought about it from that perspective, actually. I will say, I don't think that Agatha is the big bad. I think it could be possible what you were saying, and it might be even a little more possible that she is kind of like doing like instructed by the big bad, like kind of. So maybe theoretically, here's what I think. Here's a theory for you. What if Mephisto sent Agatha here to do this to Wanda? So basically what she could do is have Wanda, the most powerful person on Earth, create kids, and basically Catherine Hahn is biding time, or Agnes is, so she can have the kids grow up and then use them to like create Mephisto. Like, what if Mephisto's stuck as like a fly or something right now, and he can't take his form, and she's kind of like the one, like she's stringing Wanda along for a little more time because she needs the kids. And what is interesting about that is that could all be going on, and then there's still the plot too of whatever the hell Sword is trying to do with Vision's body. You know, what do you think Hayward meant when we launch today or we launch tomorrow? What are they launching? Are they launching nukes? Are they launching a new Vision? Are they launching Sentinel? Like, what do you think?
Well, I mean, if we go with the theory that he's using Vision to create his version of Sentinels, then he could have already made them. He could have just
Yeah,
not
he had
known how to
5
work
years.
them. And so that could be what he's bringing to the table, because I almost feel like there's a scene in the early trailers where Wanda and Vision, where he says, let's defend our home or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
they're both like fully superpowered. So at some point, the two of them have to do something to defend against. Is it sword? Is it against the big bad?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be really
Might be
interesting to
both.
see because I feel like you can't there's not that many episodes left to cram
I
all
know.
these things into, but if anyone's going to be able to do it well, it's going to be Marvel.
Yeah, and we were talking about this a little before, is just there is a rumor that each of these episodes left are like an hour. So that'd be like a full-length MCU movie. So we'll see. One thing I wanted to bring up, because I think it'll be just really cool, is so let's say Doctor Strange comes, right? There could potentially be a fight where it is Catherine Hahn versus, and maybe Mephisto or whatever, versus Wanda, Vision, Doctor Strange, and Monica Rambeau. And why do I care about that? Because if you think about it, Catherine Hahn would have purple magic, Wanda would have red, Doctor Strange would have green, Vision would have the yellow, and Monica would have the blue, which is the Infinity Stones, which would be just a cool like reference, I think.
That would be super rad. I think that would be. I think I would just. That would be another moment where I would just like literally cheer from my sofa.
Yeah,
I would be so stoked for that to happen.
I have let's talk just I guess like a little bit about what we think's gonna happen. I have incredibly high hopes for this series. I think it's freaking fantastic. I think it's what is so impressive to me about it, Peter, is I'm a giant comic book nerd. Like I love all that sort of stuff. I like all superhero stuff. Vision and Wanda, like if we're talking about superheroes I like, so far down there. Not that I dislike them, but there's so many more that like I care or I think are cooler. And the fact that they did this show with these two characters and have made it so incredibly captivating and always like people are talking about it. Kevin Feige can just do anything that man does turns to gold. Like he is like the greatest movie producer like ever. It's unbelievable. Like it's just right. Like the fact that WandaVision is like a show about the Scarlet Witch and Vision is breaking Disney Plus servers when it comes out.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's credit to them. It's truly incredible what this show has accomplished. So Peter, where I am of the mind that these next episode, I think we're getting a flashback. What do you think about that?
I think we are going to get the flashback. I think we're going to kind of figure out, now that we've ended with the Agatha reveal, I think it's going to lead to, let's see how we got to where we are now. For at least half of the episode, I feel like. And then the other half is going to set up the finale, if that's the finale. And I think something that else that helped in my mind is leading to Doctor Strange arrival is that the opening credits for this episode was a bunch of Wanda, Wanda, Wanda. And then I don't know if you noticed, but at one point there's a part where it says, "I know what you're doing, Wanda," like mixed into all the credits. It's like
that's what Doctor Strange says to Wanda in House of M, the comic book.
Well, there we have it.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
So yeah, if you watch the credits, it's mixed in there where it's like it just gives like random Wandas and then that message, and it's like a newspaper print too. So it's like random letters put together with that message, which could obviously lead to the fact that he's finally coming in to figure things out.
I know, like he's been expected to come. I'm gonna lose my freaking mind when Benedict Cumberbatch shows up. It's just gonna be. Think about how long it's been since Marvel content, and we're gonna get this epic finale to this show, Peter. I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna be like standing up and cheering at midnight, 1 a.m, like losing my mind to this. This is gonna be. I mean, if you're telling, there's a chance that we get like Doctor Strange battling Mephisto as a teaser for his upcoming movie. And I mean, we also mentioned the fact that we could be getting Mr. Fantastic. It is incredible. I think also in this next episode of it being a flashback, I think what we will do is like how we finally figured out is Agatha. I think we're gonna we're gonna set up the final episode like what the hell's going on with Sword and Hayward. Like maybe so going into that final episode, we know the 2 fights we have left, if that makes sense.
No,
because
totally.
it would be a lot to like. Because here's a question: what threat do you think gets dealt with first, Agatha or Hayward?
I think Agatha gets dealt with first. I think because Agatha's inside the hex. I think that's
Hmm.
something that needs to get addressed. And I think that one thing that we haven't talked about, but is going to play into the upcoming episodes, is Darcy. I mean, Darcy came through the hex as well. So is Darcy now going to also get powers? Is that going to lead to something? Because also, Kat Dennings, who plays Darcy, has said that she's signed to multiple
Yeah.
Marvel projects coming up. So is she going
Well,
to bleed into Loki? Is she going to bleed into something else?
here's we're talking about how Doctor Strange shows up. Who is the only person probably in the bubble that could get a message out? If you had to trust someone smart to get a message out, it would be Darcy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that could maybe warn Doctor Strange or warn Nick Fury, who
And
tells
she's
Doctor
aware of
Strange.
those people too. She's the one
Yeah.
that's aware of them.
Wow, that is fire. That's gonna be so good. Um, any other theories you have on this? It's just I don't want this show to end. I truly don't. Oh, I guess one question. So are we like is Quick? There's two ways to interpret the whole Quicksilver thing because there is in the Agatha all along part. You see some of her magic around him. So there's two ways you can think. You can think one that like he is just a creation of Agatha, or you could think two when he comes by and says Snooper's gonna snoop. It doesn't necessarily mean like he's guarding it. Maybe he's also like, what the hell is going on? Maybe he's slowly like, maybe we're gonna get next episode of him being like, what? Like, what is going on? Like, maybe he got pulled from that other reality and he's catching on to it. I say that because I just think it's a giant waste if they take Evan Peters and they give us this Quicksilver and then it just wasn't him because I do think that he's an incredible Quicksilver and Quicksilver's a fun character.
I totally am on there with you. I feel like it has to be more than just he's a random person who's here. I think this has to be what ties in the multiverse fully. It has to be that. I think what's also kind of led to that is that he says, he kind of was just brought into this world. He's not really sure how he got here either. The fact that his character in X-Men is named Peter, not Pietro,
Mm-hmm.
and in the X-Men universe, in theory, Wanda would be called the Scarlet Witch if we think about that in the X-Men
Mm-hmm.
universe. And there's the scene early on in this series where Hayward is like, well, what's Wanda's code name? What's her funny name that she's named for?
Yep.
Which could also mean, is Hayward from this universe or is he from another
Is he
universe as
Mephisto
well?
and has just been to all of them?
So that's why he's surprised that she doesn't have a name, because up to this point she's never been called the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. That's very, very, very good point.
So I like that idea that he wasn't necessarily there to stop Monica from going in there, but to kind of help her, because he does have I have to believe that he does think that's his sister and that they have that connection. I mean, there was when they're in the Halloween episode on the movie theater in the back. It's the Parent Trap, and I forget what other movie back is on
Incredibles.
there we go. So it's like it's family. So I
Yeah.
feel like that has to tie into it.
I could see what might happen. We'll wrap it up maybe with this theory. I think there's a very good chance that at the end of this, basically, Wanda and their Doctor Strange, that group, is gonna have the upper hand versus Catherine Hahn and whoever she's with. And basically, what will happen is they will disappear into like some portal at the end and maybe take Pietro, maybe take Vision, maybe take the kids, most likely, and they'll dip. And then so the post-credit scene of WandaVision will essentially be Doctor Strange and Wanda being like, all right, we got to go find them. We got to go into the multiverse of madness. Yeah, it could be cool.
I like that. I mean, that kind of goes along with the commercial we got this week for the Nexus tablets, which are just, I mean, that's, do you need a bigger multiverse clue than that? I mean,
yeah,
goes back to Thor: Dark World.
Yeah, really quickly on that Nexus thing. Basically, why that's interesting is because certain characters, a Nexus being is like basically there's only one of you in the multiverse. Like there's not, and it's very rare, but there's only one Scott Wanda in the entire multiverse. So that's what that means. I don't know. I don't know. The episodes give you a lot of enjoyment and a lot of answers, but even more questions. Peter, anything you want to say before we wrap up, or?
I think we've pretty much talked about it all. I mean, I do think it's interesting how Thor: Dark World is considered one of the not greatest Marvel movies. However, and then this episode with the Nexus calls back to it. I mean, Darcy, all these things. Even in Endgame, we go back to that movie where it's like, no, this movie is important. This makes sense. I might need to go rewatch that movie this week to kind of just
I did
see
like
if
a
there's
week
anything
ago.
else.
It was pretty good. Pretty good. It holds up. Or I mean, I don't know. The thing is like I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just compared to the rest of the MCU, it's just kind of hard. It's a lot of good stuff. All right, that is our WandaVision episode 7 recap. We got 2 more weeks of this. And then we're gonna be getting into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you to Peter. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
All right. See you guys.